people who eat the most sugar get the most diseases.
The fruit that we have today in our supermarkets is not natural.
1 billion people in the world have either type 2 diabetes or prediabetes. Up to 80% of the population still has glucose spikes. This leads to lots of symptoms, from mental health problems to fertility to acne to faster aging. If you have really high glucose levels, high insulin levels, you're more likely to get heart disease, dementia, depression. So most of us have unhealthy glucose levels.
In this video, there's no need to worry about your glucose levels, as we'll be learning from Jessie Inchauspe, the brilliant biochemist who has become a global sensation as the glucose goddess. With a mission to empower individuals to take charge of their health, she is simplifying the complex science of glucose spikes for millions. As a New York Times best-selling author, her first book, Glucose Revolution, The Life-Changing Power of Balancing Your Blood Sugar, has sold millions of copies worldwide, sparking a global movement. Her latest bestseller, The Glucose Goddess Method, provides a 4-week roadmap to crush cravings, boost energy, and feel incredible. In this video, we'll dive deep into her teachings, exploring what a glucose spike is and the 3 main consequences it brings. Then we'll share the top 5 practical hacks to reduce glucose spikes without making drastic changes to your diet. In the final segment, we'll reveal 3 seemingly healthy foods that you might want to limit for a longer, healthier life. Let's begin by understanding what a glucose spike is.
Our blood sugar levels. It's starches, so that's bread, rice, pasta, potatoes, oats, and sugars. If you eat a lot of starches and sugars at once, a lot of glucose molecules are arriving into your blood. That's the spike you see on your glucose monitor. These spikes have a few different consequences. Having a few spikes here and there is not a big deal, but if you have really big spikes, which I think most of us are discovering we have, even if we don't have diabetes, that's when problems start happening. And there's basically 3 processes that take place in your body when you spike. It's chronic fatigue of your mitochondria, aging, glycation, and then insulin release.
Excessive glucose places a strain on the mitochondria, leading to oxidative stress, overloading the energy-producing machinery and causing inflammation. Over time, this can result in reduced energy production efficiency and fatigued mitochondria. The second consequence is glycation.
Or of cooking. A human being, from the moment we're born, we're slowly cooking. We're slowly glycating. When we're fully glycated, we die. And every glucose spike increases this process of glycation. It accelerates aging. You get wrinkles faster if you glycate more, and also on the inside, your organs slowly get damaged.
The third consequence of a glucose spike is a rise in insulin levels, which can lead to various negative impacts on our health. High insulin levels over time can promote fat storage, increase inflammation, and contribute to insulin resistance, making it harder for the body to regulate blood sugar effectively. This disruption can potentially lead to metabolic issues and increase the risk of chronic diseases such as type 2 diabetes.
Insulin. And insulin stores glucose away into your liver, into your muscles, and then when those are full, insulin stores glucose away into your fat cells. And that's one of the ways that you gain fat on your body. It's in response to the spikes and your body trying to protect you from the spikes. Insulin itself has consequences and is the driver of type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance.
Here are several studies that demonstrate how glucose spikes can impact fertility, contribute to brain fog, and increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease.
A study that's really interesting shows us that in rats, scientists noticed that the more glucose spikes they had, the slower the speed of the signal between their neurons. So their brain was literally slowing down. The information was going more slowly throughout the brain. They theorized that in humans, this could lead to brain fog. There's a study that has followed people for 30 years. They found that people who had elevated glucose levels in their 40s were more likely to get Alzheimer's when they reached 60, 70, 80. So having high glucose levels at midlife is a risk factor for Alzheimer's when you're older. Not only that, but scientists have started to see that some of the things you see in the brain of someone with Alzheimer's are actually similar to what you see in the body of somebody with diabetes, namely inflammation, glycation, and insulin resistance. So much so that some scientists call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. diabetes of the brain.
Now that we've explored the potential harm caused by frequent glucose spikes, it's time to turn to the expert advice of the glucose goddess for her top 5 strategies to minimize these spikes. At the top of her list, and arguably the most important tip, is starting your day with a savory breakfast.
Glucose levels steady and helps you feel amazing is built around protein. Eggs, fish, nuts, tofu, protein powder, leftovers from dinner. And then you can add some fiber or some fat to that. So, olive oil, butter, avocados, maybe a bit of spinach if you want. And then the most important thing to remember is that in a savory breakfast, you should not eat anything sweet, except if you want some whole fruit for taste. No fruit juices, no jam, no sweet cereal, no sweet yogurts, etc. You can still have sweet foods later in the day, but for breakfast, if you want to set yourself up for success, it's very important to not have sweet food.
If you just do one hack, do this one. It is a complete game changer, and a savory breakfast should keep you satiated for 4 hours.
The second essential hack recommended by the glucose goddess is to include 1 tablespoon of vinegar in your daily routine. This simple addition can help stabilize blood sugar levels and reduce the impact of glucose spikes.
Vinegar contains acetic acid, any kind of vinegar. Just dilution so that it doesn't hurt your teeth. That's to interact with your digestive enzyme.
Acetic acid slows down how quickly food breaks down into glucose molecules when you digest it. So 1 tablespoon, big glass of water before eating, and it's quite powerful. You can do it once a day. That's what I recommend. A lot of people ask me, what about lemon? So lemon contains citric acid, and that's a different molecule. And the studies show that 1 tablespoon of vinegar in a big glass of water, that can reduce the spike of your meal by up to 30%.
One important note about incorporating vinegar. Vinegar gummies are not the best option. While they may seem convenient, these gummies often contain added sugar, which can counteract the very benefits you're seeking to achieve.
That have 2 grams of sugar per gummy. And they say vinegar gummies, so you think, oh, that's going to be good for me. I'm going to be able to replace the vinegar drink with this.
However, vinegar gummies with added sugar can negate the positive effects of vinegar. So it's best to stick with real vinegar diluted in water. Moving on to the next hack, start your meals with vegetables. This simple habit can significantly help in reducing glucose spikes by slowing down the absorption of sugars from the rest of the meal.
Your intestine, it makes this sort of protective barrier, this protective mesh, kind of gooey, fibrous mesh. And so any glucose you eat afterwards will not be able to go through your intestine into your bloodstream so quickly. So it slows down the arrival of glucose into your blood, and it slows down that spike. Eating your food in the right order. Now, the science shows us that if you eat a meal in the right order, meaning veggies first, then proteins and fats, then starches and sugars, instead of the opposite, you reduce the glucose spike of the meal by up to 75%. You're eating the same meal, the same quantity, the same food, just the order and using that fiber first mentality is going to reduce your spikes.
The fourth hack builds on the idea of starting with veggies and introduces the concept of close on carbs. This means pairing carbohydrates with fiber, protein, or healthy fats to slow down the absorption of glucose, helping to keep blood sugar levels more stable.
On their own. Because if you eat them on their own, poof, they just turn into glucose really, really quickly. So instead of having a slice of bread on its own, have bread and some avocado. Add some fat to that. That's a good clothing to add. Or add some protein, or add some fiber. Or ham and melon. Or rice and beans. Salad and then pasta, which is much better for your glucose levels than having pasta and then the salad.
The fifth hack is to get moving after eating. In this video, we highlight the 5 easiest and most impactful methods to help you manage glucose spikes effectively.
So you just sit at your desk and you just put your feet planted on the floor and you just raise your feet up on your toes, so only your toes are touching. And you do these calf raises or calf push-ups for 5 minutes. Your calf actually has a muscle called the soleus muscle, which is specifically excellent at soaking up glucose from the bloodstream. So the calf raises are a good option because as you're contracting your muscles, the glucose from the meal, as it arrives in your bloodstream, is going to be soaked up by your muscles and used for energy. So you're going to reduce the glucose spike of that meal without needing to change what's in the meal at all.
Although the glucose goddess does not promote restrictive diets, she frequently highlights 3 seemingly healthy foods that can surprisingly cause significant glucose spikes. The first on her list is oats, a common breakfast staple, often mistaken for a completely healthy choice.
So oats are a starch. And actually, if you look at starch, it's just one long chain of glucose molecules attached hand to hand. And when you eat starch, those glucose molecules get freed, and then it creates a glucose spike. So oats in the morning, if you're just having oats, you're just having starch, which means glucose spike. One, you can learn to put some clothes on those oats. So maybe some nut butter, maybe you can put some protein powder in there. Maybe you have a little egg, a little soft-boiled egg in the oats, make it like savory oats. You can find lots of nice little combinations to put protein, fat, and fiber in the oats.
It's no surprise then that oat milk, made from oats, can also lead to a significant glucose spike, making it worth considering alternatives if you're mindful of blood sugar levels.
Coffee. It's night and day. The oat milk or the rice milk will create a big glucose spike in the body. And it makes sense because you're just drinking liquid starch. So it's pretty obvious if you think about the source of it. If you have something like almond milk, at least almonds don't have that much starch in them. So it's a much better situation. Coconut milk is also better. Cow's milk if you're into dairy. But oat milk, unfortunately, massive, massive spikes in most people. Now, I know people really love oat milk. So here's my recommendation. If you don't have many symptoms and you feel pretty great and you have good energy, no cravings, whatever, no problem, and you love the oat milk, go ahead. I have nothing to teach you. But if you could feel better than you currently do, and if you want to help some of the symptoms you might be feeling, you might want to consider switching to another type of milk. Or you can also do another hack I have. If you want to eat something sweet, have it at the end of a meal instead of on an empty stomach.
The next seemingly healthy food to watch out for is fruit, as some types can trigger significant glucose spikes.
Humans have been crossing and breeding fruit for millennia to make them more appetizing for humans, to make them sweeter. It's tiny, it's full of seeds, it's quite dense, and it's not very sweet. If you look at a banana today, it's very sweet, very little fiber, very little seeds, super easy to eat. Humans have been creating these fruit to be extra juicy and extra sweet and extra full of sugar. So that's one thing to note. The fruit you see today in the supermarkets is not natural. However, a piece of fruit still has fiber in it. Fiber helps reduce the glucose spike of a meal because it creates that mesh in the intestine. So if you want to eat something sweet, eating a piece of whole fruit is still the best thing to do because of that fiber blunting the spike of sugar.
Always eat your fruit whole. Never juiced, never dried, never smoothied, only whole to have that protective fiber in there.
The glucose goddess specifically points out that grapes and certain tropical fruits can cause higher glucose spikes. So it's important to be mindful of how much you consume.
Mangoes, papayas, and then grapes also. Those are really high in sugar, yeah. But the thing is, a piece of whole fruit is okay because it has fiber in it. Grapes and cheese, the glucose response shows us that if we had the grape on its own, it would be a bigger spike than the grape with the cheese. Not only is it really delicious.
So, when we eat fruit, we should ensure to apply one of the earlier mentioned hacks, combining it with healthier foods like fiber, protein, or healthy fats to help stabilize glucose levels. The third and final food that the glucose goddess frequently warns us about is honey. While it's often seen as a natural sweetener, it can still cause significant glucose spikes if consumed in excess.
Also, I'm going to tell you something that's going to blow your mind. So people often think like, okay, honey has antioxidants in it, so that's why they'll have it. So there are as many antioxidants in a teaspoon of honey as there are in half a blueberry. When you're eating honey, you don't do it thinking it's beneficial for you. It's really dessert, it's sugar.
In conclusion, managing glucose spikes doesn't have to be complicated. By making simple tweaks like starting with a savory breakfast, using real vinegar, and being mindful of food combinations, you can keep your blood sugar levels in check. Stay tuned for more tips and tricks to live a healthier, balanced life. And before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with friends or family who might also benefit from it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in our next video. Remember, your health is your wealth.